Good morning. The March 14th, 2024 Executive Committee is now called to order. Before we get started, we need to make certain findings on the record regarding the necessity for conducting this meeting by electronic participation without a physical quorum present. In accordance with the Tennessee Code annotated section 844-108B2, as chair of the committee, as chair of the audit committee, I offer the following facts and circumstances in support of a finding of necessity for the Board of Trustees.
This is for executive.
What did I say? Audit?
Yeah.
I apologize. Executive committee to conduct its March 14, 2024 meeting without the physical presence of. Excuse me?
Everybody gotta be out for this. This is executive minutes of the audit.
Executive.
Hold on, we gotta, let's clear the room. We gotta clear the room, we're people in the room.
Executive committee, not executive.
Executive session,
okay.
executive committee. Now that I will start again, okay? In accordance with the Tennessee Code annotated section 844-108B2, as chair of the executive committee, I offer the following facts and circumstances in support of a finding of necessity for the Board of Trustees executive committee to conduct its March 14, 2024 meeting without the physical presence of a quorum. The executive committee, is scheduled to take up important committee matters which require timely action by the committee, including but not limited to hearing important reports on the presidential search process, pending legislation affecting TSU, and the secretary report. Participation by electronic means is necessitated by members in persons or absence due to unavoidable travel issues. Accordingly, I move that the committee find the participation by a quorum of the committee members by electronic means of communication is necessary. Is there a second? Trustee Lewis?
Or Trustee Martin.
Or Trustee Martin? Is there a second?
That I had my phone on mute. Sorry.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, second.
Richard Miller, I second.
Thank you. The question is on the motion to find the participation by quorum of the committee members by electronic means of communication is necessary. Secretary Pendleton, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole.
Yes.
Trustee Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
We have a quorum, President.
Okay. The motion carries. We will proceed with the meeting with a quorum present. Good morning again. At this time, we need to call the roll. Secretary Pendleton, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole.
Present.
Trustee Martin.
Present.
Trustee Lewis.
Present.
Okay. Committee members, if you cannot hear or speak to the other committee members or board members, please state so now. For each committee member participating electronically, please identify any individuals who are present in the location for which you are participating. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the November 16, 2023 Executive Committee meeting minutes. The minutes for the Executive Committee's November 16, 2023 meeting are included for your review in the board materials for the March 14, 2024 board meeting. I move for the Executive Committee to recommend to the full board the approval of the November 16, 2023 Executive Committee meeting minutes as contained in the board material for the March 14, 2024 board meeting. Is there a second?
Okay.
Any discussion? The question is on the motion to recommend to the full board the approval of the November 16, 2023 Executive Committee meeting minutes as contained in the board materials for the March 14, 2024 board meeting. Secretary Pendleton, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole.
Yes.
Trustee Martin.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
3 ayes.
The motion is approved. The next item on the agenda is an update on the presidential search process. I will provide this report. Information regarding this update can be found in the board materials. Oh, thank you. All right. At the November 16, 2023 board meeting, I discussed the presidential search process, including the appointment of search committee, the retention of a search firm to assist in the search, and the framework of a timeline for conducting the search, all of which will culminate in a board decision as to the selection of the next TSU president. Following the November 16, 2023 board meeting, the search process proceeded immediately with the search committee conducting its first meeting, the development of a timeline, and the holding of listening sessions with specific groups, including board members, students, faculty, staff, and alums. Through these listening sessions, a presidential profile was developed and posted on the TSU board website and the search firm's website in December. The recruitment process was also formally launched in December, with the search firm soliciting and receiving application materials. The search committee met again in February to discuss logistical matters and prepare for the evaluation of applicants. The search process continues on track as the search committee met in early March and scheduled a series of meetings for later in March to identify up to 10 semi-finalist candidates for search committee interviews at the end of March. These are candidates that will move forward for further consideration. The search committee plans to move approximately 4 individuals forward for future consideration and evaluation. This process will also involve board interviews, opportunities for involvement by the governor, which he has been notified in writing of that, the naming of finalists, and an open forum on campus. As I noted in September 14th, 2023 board meeting, the board will make a final decision on the selection of the next TSU president. The board anticipates naming a new president via a special called open meeting sometimes in late April. It is the intent and the movement of the search committee and I as chair to make sure this timeline is followed and that we do follow through with this entire process. I also want to thank everyone on the Presidential Search Committee for the assistance, and this is a very important piece of work for Tennessee State University, and I appreciate all the work that everyone has put in. I would like to make one comment about the search committee. I've received a number of questions relative to the size of the committee. The size of the committee is to allow for there to be participation from all groups affiliated with Tennessee State University, the foundation, the alums, the faculty, the staff, the students, the community. Again, the Board of Trustees will make the final decision as to the president, and the governor has agreed to speak with up to 3 candidates that we move forward. Are there any questions regarding this matter?
Yes.
Yes.
Did I understand that the finalists would be made, the 4 finalists or whatever would be announced? Is that right? Did I hear that right?
No.
Or however many finalists there are?
We're moving forward 4 people for further consideration.
Okay.
Up to 4.
Okay.
Up to 4 for consideration. Secretary Pendleton and I met to discuss the procedures in detail to make sure that we were in compliance with the state of Tennessee law as it relates to selecting of presidents for the institutions. You want to make any comments on that, Secretary Pendleton?
Yeah, so under law, anyone that would be deemed a finalist then would be subject to public disclosure. So you're correct.
But that would be up to 3. Okay. I know it says approximately 4. And then, of course, we did talk with the governor's office for the governor to interview the 3 to 4 that we would have.
Would the prospect of being disclosed publicly deter any good candidates from being considered?
We spoke with the search firm. The search firm, in the information they put together, they have documents that the candidates have signed, knowing that if they move forward to that process, that their names would have to be disclosed. That is not our desire. That is a requirement. Am I not correct, Attorney Pendleton?
Yes, it's no longer deemed public, so it's
Right.
announced. But the search firm has the folks at the time that they are moving forward, would be deemed a finalist. They first get their authorization saying, we're about to name you a finalist. Are you fine with with moving forward? So at that time, a person could say, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm out.
And they would sign a document if they are comfortable with moving forward, knowing that it would become public information. They sign off on that. We can't afford just to move one person forward because we don't know what would happen. There has to be a background check. I've been on other presidential search committees, and we get the person, and then they decide that's not what they want to do. So we're trying to take the path that is the best to give Tennessee State University the best opportunity for its president. But thank you for those questions. Those were things that we did meet on to make sure that we were in line, because we don't want any problem with this not being done in accordance with the laws that have been laid out. Anyone else? Okay. But again, to the entire search committee, to the Board of Trustees, to everyone that has been involved, all of you that were part of the listening sessions, I thank you. There was a very robust meeting that we had on the last committee meeting. Everyone was involved, and I appreciate that involvement. The next item on the agenda is an update on the pending legislation affecting Tennessee State University. Secretary Pendleton will provide a report on this item. Secretary Pendleton, please provide your report. Is that okay with you, Dr. Glover? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Cole. As you're aware, and received an update on, we have really two primary bills. There's another piece of legislation as well that we'll talk about a bit about. Senate Bill 2109, which is the bill that would transfer governance to THAC in the event a board is sunsetted or vacated. That has received passage throughout the entire Senate. So that went through Senate committee and then to the floor of the Senate and passed. That is now scheduled for House action in committee. We believe on Monday that will be heard for House action. Even with the House committee vote, it would still need to move through the House for a vote, for entire vote on that before it then, assuming they're both comparable and similar in language, then it would ultimately have to be approved by the governor. So that's Senate Bill 2109. TSU has spoken and testified with respect to that piece of legislation. The other institutions have not really raised any issues or met with anyone to discuss that. So they've taken shall we say, a more quiet position with respect to that. Senate Bill 1596, which is the bill that originally would have moved the termination date a year, essentially giving the board a one-year extension, was then amended to vacate the board and reconstitute new board. That has passed in two Senate committees, the Senate Government Operations Committee, and then yesterday in the Senate Education Committee. That still would need to go to the Senate floor and be approved by the entire Senate. As for the House, it is working its way there. It could be assigned potentially at some point in time to the House committee. There are discussions going on more with the leadership of the House with respect to that bill in terms of potential modifications to it. So that is really a more of a work in progress related to Senate Bill 1596. There's also another bill that is scheduled for calendar that would really sort of attempts to provide for a floor, shall we say, of matching funds for TSU that would be 2 times the rate that the federal government requires. And that is working its way through the House and the Senate. I know that Dr. Glover has had conversations with legislators on that particular piece of legislation and what potentially we can do in terms of amendments. That doesn't guarantee us a ceiling or doesn't set a ceiling. It provides for a floor on that. So those are the pieces of legislation that are primary ones for TSU. Are there any questions?
Just a comment, so that it's the land grant bill for the land grant match
Yes,
for federal
for land
money,
grant, yes.
2 times instead of the 1 time.
Yes.
Trustee Penner? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna ask, so it's an amendment to the original land grant bill? Or,
To the original, no, it's just original bill that was.
it's new? So
Right, it's new.
who filed, do you know who filed it?
That has been filed by Senator Akbari. And I know that also, Dr. Glover, you want to comment, who's involved with that particular piece of legislation? That's land grant. Okay.
Secretary Pelton, is there another bill, House Bill 2346 or something that,
So House Bill 2346 is the Senate version
Senate.
of Senate 1596.
okay, all right.
With that, that concludes the report
Okay,
update.
all right. Any more questions or comments?
What's that bill? It's about Senator Akbari?
Yeah, but it's, hang on a quick sec. That is Senate bill, was listed as the, getting the House bill. The Senate bill is 1990.
I would just like to follow up with some comments from what Trustee Martin said earlier, and that is, one, I am very proud of the work that Tennessee State University Board of Trustees has done. I came on the board when doing the initial board. I was on the inauguration board. I'm very proud of the work that's been done. I don't think we can find a university in this country that doesn't have some type of a problem. And I say to you what I said earlier and ask you to please continue to work with us. We are the Board of Trustees of Tennessee State University until we are no longer the Board of Trustees of Tennessee State University. Thank you, Secretary Pendleton, for that report, okay? The next item on the agenda is the Secretary's report. Secretary Pendleton, please. Did you have any additional comments, Dr. Glover? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Secretary's report. Secretary Pendleton, please provide your report.
Thank you, Chair Cole. Just a couple of items. We talked, I believe, at the last board meeting about some of the discourse that was going on campuses across the country regarding some divisions between students from more supportive of Israel and students that are more supportive of Hamas or some other groups. And the U.S. Department of Education conducted and invited some universities, including Tennessee State University, to participate in listening sessions to discuss what's going on in their respective campuses, what types of measures they're putting in place or that's already covered to address the issue of really the balance between the First Amendment free speech at the same time protecting students from a hostile educational environment. So I was invited to participate along with Dean Stevenson and in a listening session that was hosted by the U.S. Department of Education. And we participated along with some other institutions, University of Michigan and some other institutions, and we provided, I thought we had a good discussion in providing some of the things that we're doing at TSU related to protecting those rights and really trying to make sure that students are coming together. College is a great time to have that exchange of dialogue and debate rather than creating hostile environments or not allowing folks to speak. So, or sometimes these things have gotten a little bit violent on some of the campuses. So they heard from us and we were able to speak to that. And you pretty much had your general counsels and student affairs deans that were participated in these listening sessions. So I thought that that was a good opportunity for TSU. As many of you also know, is that under the Trump administration, they passed new regulations on Title IX. When the Biden administration came in, they then moved to modify those regulations, and they're going through a process that includes, after the drafting, it gets forwarded to the White House Office of Management and Budget for consideration. There's a group of us. TSU is a part of the APLU, which is the Association of Public Land Grant Universities, and I participated on sort of a national council of attorneys that help advise APLU. A group of us was invited to speak with members of the White House as well as the U.S. Department of Education, OCR, to speak to the Biden administration's proposed regulations on Title IX. And so we address a number of items, including the roles of Title IX coordinators, the complexity of the regulations, and things like that, where we provided some input on a conference call that we participated in. So what we're trying to avoid is, with each administration, it seems to kind of go back and forth between a Republican administration that puts in certain things into regulation, and then you get to a Democratic administration, and depending on the changeover that you have in administrations, that can be quite taxing on universities to be going back and forth. And so that is something that was conveyed as well. And that will conclude my report unless there's any questions.
President Glover, do you have any comments? Okay, thank you, Secretary Pendleton, for that report. Is there any additional business to become before the Executive Committee? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? I'll move that. Okay, any discussion? The question is on the motion.
Yes, second it. He moved it.
Oh, I'm sorry, second. Is there a second, please?
Okay. So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. The question is on the motion to adjourn the meeting. Secretary Pendleton, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole?
Yes.
Trustee Martin?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
3 ayes.
Okay, the motion is approved. We are adjourned.
What's the audit next, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 10:30. What time is audit? 10:30?
All right, good morning.